Hello, galactic travelers, cosmic crew. What's happening? I am coming to you live this morning. I know that it's the first, it's December 1st, 2018, and woke up this morning with news of with news of George Bush Sr. exiting the planet dimensionally, physically, right? And so I went and knowing what all the astrology has been, right? And if you're watching this channel with me all the time, then hey Sarah, then you know that we look at when first I want to start by saying if you are coming to first I want to start by saying if you are coming to this channel for the first time because of the title, I want to make sure that everyone understands that the light worker community and the star seeds and all of us who speak of these elite um, avatars that we perceived in a different light in the 3D, okay? Understand that this is what awakening is. Awakening and ascension is just the process of us understanding the energy and the world that we live in and how we've been governed and ruled for eons and eons and eons. But this is what we talk about when we talk about awakening and waking up. And so if you're coming to this video for the first time because of George Bush Sr., okay, then first of all, from on behalf of myself and all the starseed races and all of um, the Coco, I know that we also are giving love. We're giving love to this era being over. We're giving love to all the experiences that brought about the now that we're living in. And we celebrate that and we celebrate this exit, not from as much of a physical perspective, because a lot of people are going to be mourning, right? Which is exactly the energetics that are being sought. But more importantly, when we look at astrology now and the more that we are all awakening to these different shifts and understanding what's going on in the energy, it was and talking about these portals and these gateways, right? We tend to think about more of always what's coming in, right? When we talk about the different astrologies and the 777 alignments, which I'm going to go into some detail because that was yesterday, and that was Antares, that was Alpha Draconic. And these are, guys, just so you know, these are like my little, I hang these from my rearview mirror. So that's what you're seeing is the light reflecting off all of that. How are you guys doing? Happy Saturday. I'm at hockey practice. So I just wanted to do this video really quick to talk about this transit and this energy exiting. Okay. We talk about our bodies and we talk about having to hey, metaphysical mama. We talk about having to release within our physical vessel in order to bring in the good, right? Well, remember that's also what's happening energetically on the planet. And we've had so much, we had Venus go retrograde, then we had it go direct, now we're we're entering into Scorpio. It's either today or in the wee hours in the morning. Venus is going into Scorpio, and it's 11:11 right now. Hoot hoot. Venus is going back into Scorpio. You know, Mercury is going to be in Scorpio. Venus is going direct. Mercury's going opposite. They're legit going to meet up at the middle. It's crazy, which is where Venus went retrograde, which is, you know, at this 16-degree mark. Okay. And this is where there's so many things that are going on, right? And it's all linked in the charts right now to Antares. And Antares is a royal star. It is an archangel. It's Archangel Uriel, but it is a galactic port. Antares is a galactic port to get into this dimension. So and it's always opposite at 9 degrees of Sagittarius, okay, which the sun yesterday, when George Bush Sr. departed this planet, the sun was at 8 degrees of Sagittarius. The day before, it was at 7 degrees of Sagittarius, which is all in conjunction to Antares. Well, when Antares is activated, then that means Aldebaran is activated. Aldebaran is another royal star. And if you want to think of Aldebaran is kind of, I think of it as, because I think of everything in DNA terms, I think of it as like the O blood of the archangels. It's kind of like the three that are blended together. Aldebaran is basically the future galactic us. It's Earth, right? I mean, it's the culmination of us all, kind of like the Pleiadians within the human genome. But this is from another dimensional aspect. So when we look at an Antares opening, right? And then we start looking at yesterday, we had the sun at 7 degrees of Sagittarius. The moon was at 7 degrees of Scorpio. Saturn was at 7 degrees of Capricorn. So we had this 777 activation. It opened up Antares and it opened up Aldebaran. So it opened up this energetic portal. The 777 is the Christed number, is representative of the human. You know, it's representative of transmutation of that energy, which is in with Antares, right? And for instance, that's all fire. You know, Antares is like Mars on like triple gangster steroids. It's also linked to World War II. That was the Antares search, which is why we've got so much Nazi stuff coming up right now. Okay. And it even gets involved in the Nazi stuff and these massive grid structures that were set up energetically, which is where I'm leading now into where, you know, uh, a an energetic power like George Bush, because you know he's a president. They're all linked, right? They're Rh negative. This goes back to, you know, Cygnus and the original template of this spiritual world and how we've been living in it, and the secret societies that have all been keeping this knowledge occult and keeping it away from the human beings, the people, all of us keep, right? So as we've come out and we talk about, we're rewriting, we're going back to the human template, we're going back to the original template, okay? And we talked about how this divine feminine energy is rewritten on the planet for the first time. It was connected in the human genome for the first time, okay? So we have this 777 activation. in the energetics of the planet, of this realm, if you will, of the embodiment of this energy now. And then we have uh right as Venus is going to go back into Scorpio out of air, Venus is opposing Uranus. Well, Uranus is, uranium. It's moving. I describe it as moving, a million miles an hour backwards, like an energetic ball getting thrown into black matter that's going clockwise. Okay. So your Uranus is, on the other side of Saturn. It's opposite of Saturn. Saturn is like Chronos and the 3D and the projector, whereas Uranus is like, throw that shit out the window and just go fry your freak flag and tell everybody really what it is, right? Well, Uranus is across from Venus. Venus has been hanging out, right there at the last degrees of Libra, getting ready to go back into Scorpio. So you've got Venus with this huge rewrite that's opposite Uranus, that yesterday was at 29 degrees and 11 minutes exactly. So that was like an 11-11 switch, because Venus is fixing to go into a water sign, Scorpio, right as Mercury goes back into Scorpio. And Mercury is our thought process. So we've got this divine feminine energy that's fueling up, that's ready to jump into the water in Scorpio with this 777 gateway. And what happened? What happened was, just as we talk about, and it's beautiful. Okay, I mean, this is why I wanted to do this video, and I'm describing this to you guys in a way that you're understanding. Because when I look at these charts, what I'm seeing are these giant portals and openings, and the bushes are, again, like I talked to Queen Elizabeth. I talk about Queen Elizabeth, and I talk about these figures. Well, there's an avatar of them, and then there's a much higher dimensional aspect of how that energy is all tied together and used. And with George Bush Sr. leaving, it makes perfect sense that he was reprocessed at this time, because his literally, it's kind of like us having to release the negative energy within our body in order to bring in new. That's what is having to happen on the planet. And we talk about souls, and a lot of those that have played the dark side. And look, I'm not saying that there doesn't need to be disclosure. I'm not, and that's what I feel like, and that's what the intent of this live is to talk about. um yes, we need to know, but the judgment is what could really critically wound us right now. So so I don't want to get off on, who did what to whom. But that energy was a lot of the black magic and things that were hooked to that artificial stargate that came down in November. And 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 I can see it so clearly. So when that happened, then and the waves of consciousness started happening within the humans on the planet, because we're all getting this rewrite of this new divine feminine energy. And it was all opposing Uranus. So you've got this huge massive ball of white light. And so that darkest of the dark, because there's always a polarity. So that darkest of the dark is what had to leave. So it did. And it's so significant. It's so significant that it happened on a 777. And it's so significant that it happened when the sun was conjunct Antares and the moon was on Alpha Draconic, and Venus was on an Alpha Draconic Arcturian degree Isar with a full rewrite. So it was, and then we've got Mars in here, which I haven't even talked about. Mars is also involved in that because it's at 8 degrees of Pisces. So that's a 7778. So we've got all that energy that's locking in. So if you think of, like a 777 pattern, like a um mandala, right? Or for whatever you call those. Okay, if you think of it like 777, and it's like that watch gear, and it got put on and fractaled out that energy in a gateway portal that it was able to get out. Well, we want it out. We want it transmuted, right? But it's makes so much sense that fire, that Antares, that galactic opening, we're sending that energy out of this dimension to bring in the new. Oh my gosh, Jupiter was at 4 degrees, again, that 2911, which was an 1111. And so, does that make sense to you guys? I wanted to show up and talk about this because it's so important to see. I mean, it's just amazing times we're living in. I mean, it just, and then yesterday too, we had um that earthquake in Alaska. Um all these ancient volcanoes are erupting, and these ancient volcanoes are spiritually linked to this energy. It's those volcanoes are underneath. If here's the earth and here's the crust, those ancient volcanoes are surrounding the inner flame. They're right here. So that's from the original energy frequencies on the planet. When we started forming humanity, and all our DNA steering back to creation, right? Which was all a manipulation of the original beings of original, really, like a Cygnus energy, right? And then we fractaled off into all these different star systems, and then they started warring with each other. I mean, it was freaking right. And so now it's like the earth, the realm has been reset. That negative, the glue that was holding the goo, is what I just heard. The glue that was holding the goo has been set to water, and so now it's flowing out. It's not it can't stay in this realm anymore, because this realm, we're up a consciousness level. So that energy that was connected, with Alpha Draconic, with the enslavement of all the lies, all the deception, right? But we have to be really careful about this, because there's so much that's coming out about the space programs, and there's going to be so much more coming out about the Nazis and what really happened and how they didn't go away, and a lot of the people that played these roles, especially since the 60s and 70s, and when Americans especially just trusted the government, because that's what we were taught and programmed to do. We had no reason to even question, right? Because of how we were programmed. But remember that without those events, the human genome could not be completed. We could not finish the galactic human. And I'm not condoning by any means World War II and what went down and how they did it and at a spirit at a soul level, it's like some of us were even part of it, which is how we were able to undo it. And it's not like we have memory of it, but we have the akash of it. Our our soul is somehow linked to it. So you can't have judgment to the point where you're not understanding and understanding that the awareness is just the beginning. You have the awareness so that now we're aware of the of like, for instance, a lot of us at a soul level signed up to do a lot of the physical experiments that were done to us in this realm. First, we wake up to the fact that, oh my gosh, that was some type of weird government experiment. Then, as we awaken more and more, and we our soul shows us why that was done, and it was never about us as Christy. It was for a much bigger purpose, like the completing the galactic human. A lot of us, especially if we're negatives, like I have had in my physical surgeries that others have had in the etheric, and I know now that it's linked to the AB negative, and since I'm a human prototype in my physical, then those things were being manipulated in my body in this physical for the adjustments in the higher dimension in order to connect the human genome, because we're some of the first that are here doing it, right? So I want to go into detail soon about this whole hyperbaric chamber thing that I was involved in, because it's very much linked to the Stargate stuff and even to Eisenhower and the secret space programs, the submarines, um, its density, all of it, right? But you see what I'm saying? We can't judge it. It's just how it was being ruled, and it's just how we were being governed. And what's beautiful is that this event, George Bush leaving this realm, proves everything we've been talking about, because physically his energetic frequency was so low that when that transit opened up and came with that new feminine vibration, his body literally could not handle it. And what else was crazy, that I want to end with this, or I might talk about something else, but last night at around 11:30, and I think that's around when he died. Do y'all know when he died? Um but it was around uh 11:30, I had this heart activation that it was funny, because Amanda texted me and said a lot of people are leaving the planet. And this is again, okay, because this isn't just um the elite, right, that are leaving. And remember, John McCain just left on the 25th, and I went back and looked at that as well, and there was a bunch of 2 degrees transits. And what was interesting with John McCain is that Jupiter was at 16 degrees of Scorpio, 16 degrees, 16 minutes, which is right where Venus went retrograde, which is right whenever we drew the line with all this sexual crap that was going on, because that's kind of where all that started when we went retrograde with Venus. It was on the sexual trafficking and all that kind of thing that was going on. And that's when John McCain passed away. Jupiter was at 16 degrees, 16 seconds. So it's energetic. That astrology, this wheel is basically like a energy dial. It's like a golden compass. I was getting somewhere wait, what else on John McCain? It was August 25th. Oh, and here's the other thing. The sun, when John McCain passed, was at 1 degree of Virgo. Was at 1 degree of Virgo, and Mars at that point was 28 degrees and 39 minutes of Capricorn, and it was in retrograde. Oh, when McCain passed away, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were all in retrograde, which was super interesting, right? Because these are all just dials in. I mean, they're all dialed in. We had Saturn at 2 degrees of Capricorn and Uranus at 2 degrees of Taurus. John McCain's lineage and his energy was more so, I feel, from an energetic perspective, was more representation of the sexual trafficking and more of the human state. John McCain's energy was more within the human suffering. George Bush's energy was way more galactic and the over umbrella, one of them, right? And realize too that these people don't even sometimes realize they're doing anything wrong. Okay? Because of how, now I'm not saying that Senior and I'm not saying McCain didn't know, because they are involved with a lot of secret society stuff, all right? And spiritual um rituals, and which are only giving that energy intent, right? And they're jumping up lower energy frequencies to bind, to make it sticky, like gluttony, to make that goo, that black goo, what they call goo. And if you really think about black goo, it goes to, I link it to oil. And if I think it to oil, and when I look at the earth and I can see the veins of earth, and the blue veins and the red veins and the heart that's in Egypt, I mean, then I think about the blood, and I think about the oil is the blood. And these have been the blood wars. So again, it's the manipulation. But now, as conscious beings, especially those of us that really were like the sleeper agents, because we have this knowledge in our Akash, right? So this is how we're able to see these patterns and understand the energy, and see how those wheels are locking into this dimension. And not only are babies coming in that are going to be mega star seeds, and Lord, we got to talk about the kids, and we really need to talk about our children and our families, right, to support these massive dimensional changes. But I just want you guys to see that also there's energies exiting out that can no longer maintain in this new reality that the cocoa is built on. And right, I mean, this is really happening. um The other thing from the earth changes that I want to bring up right now is, wow. So, oh, wait, going back to the heart at 11:30. So last night, Amanda had texted saying, "Hey, people are starting to leave the planet more, meaning people are passing away." Um, and then all of a sudden, it was about 11:30. I had this major heart activation, and it was pretty intense, and I could feel it was kind of like a lower chamber, and it fluttered kind of concerningly, to where it I had to stop and pause, and breathe through it. It lasted about 10 minutes. The fluttering was only a quick second, but then it was painful. I could feel like I was processing something through my heart. And I'm almost positive that's around when that energy left this dimension in this realm, which would completely make sense because we're so super sensitive to it. So when that density left that energy frequency tied to that being, because remember that this the true dark energy, the true low frequencies can only survive in this realm attached to someone of this realm, because those entities aren't really from this realm. They inhabit us in this realm, which then gave them the ability to govern in this realm. Okay. So that energy left. And when it left, it activated heart chakra. And that makes so much sense from alchemy too, because now we're going to be going into the water and we're going to be pure what, and Scorpio is the transformation. Scorpio is the phoenix that rises. But we've got 16 degrees of Scorpio for Venus to get to, and until we even get back to that 16-degree mark where she went retrograde. And it's just interesting how Scorpio has been so involved with the passing and these entities leaving the planet. And especially the timing. Especially the timing. I mean, Venus is going back. I mean, what? I mean, is going into Scorpio. I mean, out of air. Um, okay, so that leads me to this. On 11/11, now if we go back to 11/11/11, that's when we had, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Um, on 11/11/11, oh my gosh, that was the day. If you go back and I think I did a video on the 12th, because that was right around, I mean, 11/11/09 was the new moon, and Diwali, and that's when we connected to Antares, right, which is what assisted us in bringing in the Elohim template in the past 20 days. I mean, what? What? So on 11/11 was that day that I knew we hooked into the sun through Egypt. And I'll never, it was 11/09, and I was walking to the bathroom. I remember I told you guys I was naked because I was fixing to get in the shower, and then all of a sudden, dimensionally, I got pulled to Egypt. Amanda was there. In the beginning, I was by myself. Um, and I started doing light language and doing things with my hands. Um, and then I knew to get Amanda on the phone. And on 11/11, what really transpired through all that was the transmutation of the energy into the new dimension, meaning I clearly saw the new plasma bubble, and it was connected to like the 5D and the 3D realm. Those two bubbles, those two circles, they were connected, but I was connected to the core of the earth and the galaxies and this new sun energy. And the energy of the 3D earth processed through my field. And when I mean process, I mean emotionally. I mean, I was emotionally transmuting. I could feel, oh gosh, I can't even describe it. But that's normally, if you get called on these things and you have a emotional purge of some sort, that's what you're doing. You're transmuting that energy, because energy never dies. So we're just transmuting it through our field. So just, if that happens to you, just allow it to release and understand that you're releasing for so much more than you. So at this time, I as soon as I transmuted it, Amanda was on the phone just holding space for me. This was the second big transmutation I had done. The first one was in May, again, whenever we birthed a new plasma field. So I know that happened. Okay. And then that was when on the 12th is when we went into water. And then on the 13th, we connected to Uluru. And by the 14th, we were underground and we were dismantling that big Stargate that's off Australia. And what has come up in the past 24 hours, Joyce sent me an article first, and there was a seismic pulse on 11/11/11. So on November 11th, 2018, there was a seismic pulse that nobody on the planet felt. But the machines went nuts, and it there's different waves of energy pulses that have been, and some are called P waves, I think, and S waves, and right. This was a wave that had never been seen. Everyone scratching their heads. Okay, this is just more and more confirmation of everything we know, that we're like Moses from up on the mountain screaming, going, "Look over here, people! I've already chiseled this thing in rock. I've been working on this thing for 15 years. I've chiseled all these 10 commandments in this stone with my little pinky finger while I'm waiting for you guys to hear me." Right? But there was a seismic pulse. The thing about this pulse was that it was such a low frequency, and it all stemmed from one place on the planet, which is right around there, the New Zealand, and right around there with Australia. I mean, not exactly, but it's around there. Um, my yacht is where it came from, which is where there's a lot of ancient volcanoes there. This frequency hit the planet, and it was the wave took more than, I think, what is it? It was more than 17 seconds, or no, it was like 12 minutes. I can't remember exactly. I have these on the playlist, okay, for Cosmic Christie if you want to go watch. But it was a long cycle they had never seen before, and the way that it sent these pulses out on the planet, and nobody had ever seen anything before like it. And this was on 11/11/11, which again confirms we had this energetic shift, releasing that lower energy. Because remember, our sun is ascending. The whole planet is ascending, just like everything that happens with your body is happening on the planet, and it's happening at the same time, and it's connected. So the earth, just as we're unlocking our bones, so is the earth. The earth's bones, the crust of the earth, has all been entangled with black magic. Some of it we did it to ourselves. This is, a lot of it's linked to Egypt. A lot of it's linked to the mummification process of the Essene lineage. Because we don't talk about the Essenes being mummified, but they're all mummified too. What was the intent of mummification? It's linked to the bloodlines. It again, this all links back even to George Bush Sr., who died at 94 years old, which is 13. And this is all the original spiritual locks that his lineage, over hundreds of thousands of years, had encased and encrusted. So now we're going to see a shift on the planet. It takes a little bit longer. Some of us humans feel it. I mean, like, I think I honestly felt it whenever it happened. But understand that too, as we're looking at the earth shift and we're looking at the pole shift, we know that there's going to be some devastation. We know all of this. But the only way to slow it down is to realize you're connected to it. You're connected to it. So if you're reacting and you're throwing, because we've got all this fire energy coming, holy Christmas, for real, for real. Like, I haven't even got on the new moon and the moon cycles, because I'm going to be doing a video on that hopefully today. just on the moon cycles plain, because we've got so much fire in the chart right now. But remember that, it's going into water. Air is pretty much going to be done after today. I mean, yes, there's some air in the chart, but I mean, for real, like on the new moon, we don't have any air. It's like 11, we've got 11 different elements of fire. And then on the full moon, it's like all water. So we're going through Scorpio. The energy and the thought process, especially with this, because we were already talking. Maru's been talking about this. Other people have been talking about this. This is where my mind has been going. It is back to the Nazis. And what they were really doing behind the scenes, and the development of so much at that time, and the full, in 1945, I believe in 1945, whenever they triggered that atomic bomb, they called it the Trinity something. It happened in July of 1945. When they fired that energy frequency off, because the universes and the galaxies and everything is connected, through filaments, if you will, like inside your muscles, everything's connected. So when that weapon discharged, even though it was just a test, yeah, right. In 1945, what that did is it allowed them to hijack the timeline. And I couldn't figure out how I knew since May, I knew that the entire timeline from 1945 to 1954, 45 to 54, 4554, which if you line those up and merge them upside down and backwards, mirror and merge, it makes a swastika. So from 45 to 54, I knew that timeline was hijacked, but I couldn't exactly figure out how. Now I see how. When that weapon was disfired, it sent such a massive pulse through through everything, that it reverberated something back. And in 1945, so everything that happened between 1945 and 1954 was in complete control of the lower frequency entities and beings, and we were completely hijacked. Completely hijacked. Completely hijacked. I was going somewhere with that. They In 1945, in those times, they were exiting. It's like, okay, remember, because that was the Antares search. World War II was the Antares search. These were galactic beings that were coming here trying to find each other. And they were the scientists and the engineers, right? All the incarnates, from the soul incarnates, that had all the workings and energy knowledge on the manipulation of the realms, right? Was made available here. They were finding each other, kind of like we're finding each other now. This is why it's so tripping me out. It's like how we're finding each other now, and how even these migrations of people all over the world. Well, that's happening because our we toppled the grid, and so it's like different especially those being the nationalities that were legit set on lower dimensions, because that's how they were doing it. We're all layered. It blows my mind. It's like bees. Where the way that they have it sectored off, when to they had us sectored off to govern us, was geographic, and it was all by color and shape, and when the wheel is spinning, it was like it had always these missing pieces, and depending on where the people were geographically and what they were set on, then they didn't even have the full mental capacity to transform themselves. It's like they were set on caveman. But now that that's fully circulating, and now that we're coming back into our soul, we're remembering, then yes, there's mass migrations and stuff going on, because it's so obvious that where they were living was tuned in on such a lower frequency. And I'll end on this, because this is bringing me to something else that's blowing my mind. In Australia right now, in Australia right now, uh, there's a huge fire going on, and it's in Queensland, which is, I guess it depends on how you look at Australia. I guess it's like the east. Don't get me lying. It's a coast, and it's legit. They call it Capricornia, Capricorn, which blows me mind. Blows me mind. And so in Queensland, in Capricornia, on the coast, there's a strip of land that is fully ablaze, that is disintegrating cars, is such a massive fire that no one can control it. It's so random. It's never been seen before. It's never happened. Any of this sounding familiar? Queensland is linked to, I've talked about this before when we talk about uh, the Alpha Draconic, and we talked about the and don't get me, because there's white Draco and black Draco, right? I mean, there's balance in all. There's the black and the white and everything, but this is how they were doing it. Queensland, Haywood, Hollywood, all of and there's a Haywood in Oklahoma that I feel is very, very, very linked to sex trafficking. Those geographic areas were all managed from one group of entities, right? We know that one group of entities was managing the whole earth. We know they were doing it with intent and black magic, right? Because that's what we're remembering now, because we're utilizing it. We're just transmuting it and doing it the opposite way. Well, the way that they, with intent, they had these energetic frequencies set up with the namings of things. And so it's Queensland, which is linked to the Queen, which is linked to Haywood, which is where the original castles were in England, which is linked to Hollywood, right? So, and we've got these massive clearing transmutation events. I also feel like the Australia too, and in Hollywood. I mean, those are just, it's energetic, and it's the lava and everything that's coming below, the everything's moving. The Where that pulse came from on 11/11/11, that where it originated from, was a lot, there's a lot of ancient volcanoes there, but now they're seeing, and I want to, Mayat, which I thought was super interesting, because when you look at the spelling, you wouldn't think it was pronounced Mayat, but when it was pronounced that way, Ma'at is what I completely thought of, which is the rebalancing, and it's a little island that's shifting, just like Hawaii shifted when this started this year, when we started truly turning after the precession of the equinoxes. We had enough of the energy that truly we were going as the same direction as the planet now, and starting to work our way backwards through the human genome. And so now that is so much connected, it's shifting so much faster. And this is the beginning of the big pole shift. On the full moon of December 22nd, we are going to have the sun at 0 degrees and 49 minutes of Capricorn, the moon at 0 degrees and 49 minutes of Cancer, which is 13, again, 0 degree energy. And then Mercury is going to be conjunct Jupiter on Antares for that full moon. We're transmuting that galactic energy. We just sent it out. We just said, nope, you're out of here. Close up the gate. We're closing up the gate. I honestly believe that that lower frequency leaving at a galactic level, so linked to the disbursement of how all these things were being controlled in an artificial way, the organic things that were being controlled in an artificial way. I feel like those of us right now that are completely tuned into this are just going to be like pop, 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 pop. It's going to make so much sense to us. It's going to all of a sudden, just like, just like with me looking at this stuff this morning, I couldn't even wait till this afternoon to do a proper video about it. I had to let everybody know because I'm seeing these portals opening up and how the energy's dispersing and coming out of this realm and how we're cleaning house. And because that density left the planet that had been keeping all of that knowledge suppressed. So now that it's kind of like we've got an unveiling happening. But remember too that this is, this energy is linked to Antares, and I hate to say it, but we're also going back a little bit to where we were in October and at the end of September before Venus retrograde, right? Because we haven't got to Venus hasn't got to Scorpio 16 degrees yet, to where we have new energy. We're still going through stuff. And what's also, and I'm going to do a video on this specifically, but I can't remember if it's the new moon or you can look at Mercury's coming into Scorpio up here at 29 degrees. Venus is coming into Scorpio down here at 1 degree, and legit, they're going like this. Boom, 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 boom. Our thought process is going backwards in Mercury. Venus, our intent, our balanced energies, divine feminine, divine masculine, balanced with that Apollonian, that spiritual warrior, the true white Draco, the no judgment, the love, right? But the strong, that energy is pushing through Scorpio, pushing through the water as we've got Mercury going backwards. That's kind of like, if you think of it, it's making waves. If we're pushing energy like this in the ocean, then this sand and soot is still coming back up, and it's pushing the sand up, and then this wave up here is, processing through it again. And this is going to be linked to a lot of the Nazi stuff. It's going to be linked, to just the separation of humanity. Also, a lot of the Native American stuff is coming back online right now, big time. People are really getting back in touch with their Indian roots. And it's also from our perspective as way showers to talk to unconscious people more about the Indian in them is easier than talking about the Arcturian in them. Although every single Indian is, they all come from the stars. We know this, but just FYI. I think that's about. I was going to go off on something else, but now I forgot what it was. And Wednesday, I was bombarded with 1 and 3 combinations. Yes. And then the 7077, 1 and 3s, Ninaru. Yeah, Nin for real. Cause, this is, look, remind what I'm saying here, because all the star races are linked together. Orion is basically the babies of Alpha Draconic. It's just the more human Alpha Draconic. So when we make these massive energetic changes, I mean, this is how these downloads and these waves happen, because we sent that energy off. We're gaining on a new moon, and this new moon and this full moon ain't no damn joke. And then we're gonna enter an eclipse season. Okay. And I don't know if a lot of y'all were conscious for last eclipse season, but holy shit. Eclipse season this year is gonna be crazy. I can't even look forward to it yet. I can't, like, we gotta make it past December, and then, because on a human level, I mean, this is where our realities are changing. And on 12/21, and Aluna just put this out, and it's linked. 12/21, that's 12/22. 12/22 is the full moon. 12/21 is when Antares conjuncts Jupiter, and we've got all these crazy transits going on. And what Aluna is seeing with that is that we're anchoring back into that 2012 timeline, meaning, not just because, if you've had a starseedology session with me to this point, I've probably, told you, hey, where were you in 2012? Because you're back there in some way, mentally, or, like for me in 2000, but in 2012, like, for me, I'll give you an example. In 2012, I was at the top of my game. I had a $3 million company. I was 40 years old. I had just won all these like awards and shit, but I was also building anew. I was building artificial intelligence, but from an emotional perspective in a big business. Um, but I was doing it all for the wrong reasons. But I've been in that place where I was in 2012 because it was a huge next step in my evolution. It was going from, Christy having like a little $3 million business to getting, $10 million to build a $1 billion business. And it was super exciting, but it was also scary, really scary. And I remember my thought process was going back and forth. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Da, 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 right? I mean, so for me, I've been there a while because it's the same thing. It's like this whole time from an ascension standpoint, I've been gearing up and getting connected and getting spiritually clean so that I can understand and get all of this knowledge, right? Well, but my physical didn't look anything like 2012, right? Because what ended up happening is I lost all of that physical stuff to gain the perspective I needed back then to do it now. Does that make sense? So what's happening on 12/21, which 1221, what did I say? This is an Isis code. This is an alchemy switch. This goes back to the portals and the things that are in the chart. So on 12/21 is when she's seeing, like, and when she remote views timelines, she's seeing a massive switch back to that 2012 timeline. Well, for me, bring it on, because, and I've been telling you guys, we're picking up the bags. Everything that, it's like, to a lot of us light workers, way showers, mega star seeds, 2012, a lot of us, 2011, 2012, we were on the top of our game until that energy hit. And when that energy hit, we perceived that we lost everything because we went through all these major lessons, all this lower frequency shit came up, and all that had to be cleared, because what's happening now is we're stepping back in some way, all screamed and closed up, because, what was I building? I was building technology for the masses. What was I building? I was building I was using somebody's patents on artificial intelligence in order to assist all of the people that use the application to find about more about who they were, using videos to help them describe how they feel about things. That's what I was building. What is coming online? What is ascension? Basically that. It's crazy, especially as big way showers who have huge, huge missions and huge destiny, big breakups. If you've gone through a whole lot and you've lost everything, you have a huge destiny. I remember at Lionsgate in August 2017, and I had a reading from Maru. 3 readings that I've ever had. And I said, "What's gonna happen?" And she went, "Oh my god, you're just gonna be circling yourself. You're just gonna be following your tail. Just try to hang on." And I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" "Well, you're gonna lose more stuff." I'm like, "Well, what else could I lose? What else could I possibly lose?" Well, at this point, this is when I was still in my house. I was still in that relationship, but my mind was going, what else can I lose? And she's going, "Your destiny's too big. So much destiny, you have to tear it down." Just remember that, because we've planned our lives to step back in now. We're only stepping in to a future timeline that we've already planned. And we've already done most of the work that needs to be done. And that energy leaving the planet last night is full damn proof to me. Another thing that happened yesterday that I've got to finish up, but there's so much. Another thing that happened yesterday that really tripped me out is I woke up with feeling, the fire's been, mind trickery going on. That's that alpha draconic, that's trickery, right? And I finally was like, I'm turning on some music and I'm just dancing. Well, as I started dancing, I had my eyes closed and I opened my eyes and I hadn't moved anything in the room. It was, how you see the particle dust coming down, or the little bitty things that get in your eye? Well, these were black and they were much bigger. I even got one on video. It was like I opened my eyes and they were all, because I was making sure that they were in the air and not in my mind. They were floating all around me. There was like 15 or 20 of them just floating everywhere. But I knew it looked like carbon. It looked like little pieces of carbon floating in the sky around me. And I knew that's our energy in this lower density that's manifesting. So we just got to be patient. All the signs are here. I'm going to be back to do another video, full moon, new moon. Guys, if you are interested in starseedology session, please email me, coco@cosmicchristy.com. I'm not sure how the heck I'm getting to Australia yet with the chi. If you want to send, if this video assists you in any way, like I told you, we don't have super chat turned on just because of the contract. So, I'm sorry, PayPal me at Cosmic Coco, PayPal me, Cosmic Coco, or you can look it up in my email, coco@cosmicchristy.com. Starseedology charts, which goes through your energy and your seed and where you're from and how it's connected to the human genome. And even if you just want to talk about your awakening, you're starting to see things, multidimensionality, business. If you're in big business and there's no sense in all of y'all that are in these great jobs that are able to affect things faster, to leave them, because there's so many more people that are all waking up. People are waking up, CEOs are waking up. I mean, there's a lot changing. So if you are dealing with career stuff, or you're dealing with relationships, making a change, you don't have to get a full starseed chart. We can do just a coaching session, okay? All those things I'm very familiar with. There's only so much that I can get into video and get out to you guys um, on my experiences, okay? I'm going to try to do a lot more, but anyway, I want to also add, I think Rainbow Phoenix has Mama Maja astrologer on live today at 4 o'clock, and Mama Maja, Maga, is also another. Go, my son's done with hockey. I gotta go. My son's done. I love you guys. I call in the highest timeline of all dimension, of all space and time, and this now. And we are so grateful for a new reality, a new realm, a new galactic human online, and keep that highest timeline. No judgment.